In full electric form, Nissan's Townstar small LCV offers all the attributes of an electric Renault Kangoo or Mercedes Citan van, but with a longer 5-year warranty, which makes it a strong contender.
It's almost forgotten now that Nissan were amongst the innovators in the field of electric vans. Think of a trend-setting small full battery-powered LCV and it's the Renault Kangoo Z.E of 2011 that tends to spring to mind. But Renault's partner Nissan used the same drivetrain in an EVE NV200 model which appeared shortly afterwards and sold spectacularly for this Japanese brand. That model's replacement was this contender, Nissan's Townstar EV, a far more modern and usable take on what a small electric van should be. Like its predecessor, it shares all its drive technology with the electric Renault Kangoo, but this time around, that technology allows for a far greater driving range, swifter performance and faster charging. Sounds promising. So to find out more, you'll need the usual complete car and driving road test. The Townstar EV's powertrain is lifted straight from the Renault Kangoo E-Tech and the Mercedes E-Citan, which means you get a 45 kilowatt-hour battery powered by an electric motor producing 122 PS and 245 newton meters of torque. When it's fully charged, this variant can offer up to 183 miles of range. That's an improvement of around 45% over the old eNV200. The electric Townstar combines intelligent energy management and effective battery thermal cooling in one package, but do bear in mind you have to engage a rather restrictive eco mode to get close to achieving the quoted range. In terms of ride quality, this EV Townstar fares a little better than its combustion counterpart. That's thanks to the weight of the battery pack mounted beneath this van's CMF CD platform. That also helps handling around the twisty stuff where this Nissan feels a little more engaging to punt around than its Stellantis group rivals. Impressively, the braked tone weight figure of 1500 kilos isn't affected by the switch to the EV powertrain. The Townstar EV has 3 provided levels of selectable regenerative braking. You knock the gear lever to the right and then move it up and down to move between the settings. B2 is the default one. On the highway, you should shift the big gear selector into the B1 sailing setting. That limits energy harvesting to the minimum for unimpeded cruising. In town, meanwhile, you'd activate the fiercest B3 brake setting, and that slows the van noticeably off throttle, although not to the extent that you get from the e-pedal system, which is championed by some of Nissan's other electrified models. As with the petrol Townstar, there's also an eco mode to stifle the throttle and to maximize range, but in the EV version it muffles power output more considerably, reducing it by half to just 60 horsepower. So you really won't want to engage that outside the city limits unless you really are running low on charge. As for refinement, well, there is a bit of wind noise at higher speeds and there's a bit of electric motor whine under hard acceleration, but overall it's a bit better than rival Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat EV van models too. The cabin is a little less boomy, presumably because of extra sound deadening. At town speeds, the legislation required artificial sound effects kick in to warn unwary pedestrians or disabled people of your approach. Nissan has installed the Kanto sound it developed for its passenger cars, and that pulses more loudly when the Townstar is reversing. Downtown, this little Nissan van should fit right in. Its sharp front-end looks supposedly reflect the company's Ariya full electric car. At a glance though, it's more likely you might mistake it for the Renault Kangoo cousin model it shares all its engineering with. This full battery-powered model substitutes the petrol model's radiator grille with a front-end blanking plate, an aerodynamic front shield incorporating a smart Kumiko pattern and a central Nissan brand badge behind which resides the plug socket. LED front fog lights and power folding mirrors feature with most trim levels. You can, as usual in this class, pay a bit more to graduate up from the standard short wheelbase body shape, badged L1, and get yourself instead an L2 long wheelbase version, which adds an extra 426 millimeters to the length of this van, up from 4,910 mils as here to 4,488 mils, and an extra cubic meter of carrying capacity, up from 3.3 to 4.3 cubic meters. At the rear, where the Nissan badge is proud and centre, there are smart light clusters with a curved illuminating signature, along with lower corner reflectors and the usual upper stop light. Take a seat inside and it's pretty car-like, with a basic dashboard design which is user-friendly, although it has lots of hard plastics broken up by a faux aluminium dashboard panel. A key change over the old NV250 model is that you can replace this single passenger seat with an optional two-person bench. Digital instruments haven't reached the combustion part of the van segment just yet, but you do get them on this EV version, although only with this top-spec Techno Plus trim level, and that's one that hardly any Townstar folk will actually choose. This features a 10-inch configurable screen. Other versions of this Nissan have analog gauges separated by a 4.2-inch TFT colour display. The central infotainment monitor is an 8-inch colour touchscreen audio system setup. That's straight out of the Renault parts bin, and it's fitted to all Townstars bar those with the meanest standard of trim. Only the top two spec levels, though, get this display fitted out with navigation. Now, although it's disappointing that there's no provision for a flap into the cargo area here, you'll be impressed by the absolute multitude of cabin stowage areas, which include an upper shelf, big door bins, and a useful lidded cubby built into the instrument binnacle. You might be a bit shocked at the price premium this EV version of the Townstar demands over its petrol-powered equivalent. It's about £10,000, which at the time of our test in autumn 2023 meant a starting price for the Townstar EV of about £30,000 after deduction of the government's £2,500 plug-in van grant. As with the petrol model, there are two Townstar panel van body lengths, L1 and L2, and four trim levels, Visia, Accenta, Techna and Techna Plus. Now the asking figures range up to around £35,000 after grant deduction for this top Techna Plus variant. You can get those prices down further by including the TfL scrappage scheme in your calculations. Add that to the government plug-in van grant, and you could take a total of £12,000 off the cost of a Townstar EV, which in theory could bring the price down to only just above the figure required for the petrol variant. With all versions of the EV model, the brand includes a Mode 2 10-amp domestic charging cable, plus another cable of the Mode 3 Type 2 variety to go into a garage wallbox or a public charger. The Townstar EV also comes with a heat pump so that the passenger compartment can be warmed using ambient air, and that reduces energy drain from the climate system in colder conditions. And there's a bespoke Nissan Connect Services app for the EV version, which allows you to remotely set charging times. That's to benefit from cheaper off-peak tariffs, of course, or preheat or pre-cool the cabin, so you don't have to use the climate fan doing that once you start off. Bear in mind that a Visia trimmed Townstar EV can only charge up to 11 kilowatts. With the plusher trim levels, you'll be able to charge at up to 22 kilowatts. So do consider that before you make too many decisions about saving money on trim spec. As is now usual with electric vans, there are now no practicality downsides in choosing a full battery drivetrain. There are two Townstar body lengths, short L1 and long wheelbase L2. The L1 can carry up to 3.3 cubic meters, quite a lot less than the 4.2 cubic meters of the ENV200 predecessor. But if you stretch to the L2 Townstar model, you can boost that to 4.3 cubic meters of load space. You only get a second side sliding door on the L1 variant if you avoid base Visia trim. Both body shapes can squeeze in a pair of standard Euro pallets thanks to a generous 1248mm width between the wheel arches, and that's something that all Townstars share. It's 1570mm from wall to wall. This rear entrance aperture is 1115mm tall by 1256mm wide. It narrows to 1196mm just above the tail lights. The loading length is 1810mm in this L1 version, or 2230mm with the L2 body shape. That has a slightly lower loading sill height of 613mm. As usual in this class, there's no option of a high roof body shape to extend the ceiling height. That's 1215mm with the L1 and 1229mm with the L2. As for the cargo area payload, well, if that's important to you, you might want to think twice about the EV electric version, because it is slightly restricted there with this L1 standard body shape to 500 kilos. That's compared to 689 kilos in the combustion version. An L2 long wheelbase Townstar EV could carry up to 702 kilos compared to up to 770 in the combustion version. Now, those restrictions are due to the extra 200 kilos the EV model carries about, courtesy of the drive battery, but it's not really an excuse, because rival Peugeot, Citan, Vauxhall and Fiat Stellantis Group small EV vans can take around 200 kilos more in their short wheelbase forms. On to running costs. We gave you this Townstar EV's driving range figure in our driving section, 183 miles. It's vastly more than was possible from the previous ENV200 model. What about charging though? Well, be aware, with base Vizia trim, this Townstar EV can only charge up to a meager 11 kilowatts speed. From a home wall box or a public charger, that means a full charge will take just under 4 hours, or 7 hours with a more common 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box. Most Townstar EVs though are going to be purchased with one of the three rather plusher trim levels that will allow 22 kilowatt AC charging capability, which at the time of this test you couldn't get with those rival Stellantis Group electric vans, and also 80 kilowatt DC rapid charging. That's a bit less than the 100 kilowatt Stellantis system. That'll mean using a 22 kilowatt charger, you'll be able to fully replenish the 45 kilowatt hour battery here in under, well, around about 2 hours, with a 0 to 80% top up from the right DC public rapid charger. That'll take just 39 minutes. You'll need to bear in mind that the price gap between petrol and electricity has narrowed considerably in recent times, and as a result, if most of your charging is of the rapid DC public kind, you might find that the savings you'll get in opting for an EV van aren't quite as great as you might have initially expected them to be. All Townstar EVs come with two charging cables, one for home wall boxes and for public charging points. The other is for a standard 2.3 kilowatt domestic plug socket. That will require, though, over 13 hours of charging time. All Townstar EVs also come fitted with a heat pump, and that will preserve battery life in really cold conditions. The insurance group is 29E. As for residual values, well, over 36 months and 30,000 miles of use, independent experts expect this EV model to retain just 37% of its original value. Compare that to the 57% figure of the petrol model. Where this Townstar differs from its Renault Kangoo counterpart is in terms of the peace of mind you get after purchase. So in place of the meager 3-year, 100,000 mile warranty you get with the Kangoo, and Nissan includes a much better 5-year, 100,000 mile package, an extended deal that you'd have to pay extra for with that Renault. And it's one that's 2 years and 40,000 miles better than the Stellantis Group warranty offered in Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citan and Fiat rivals. The Nissan Townstar EV is the small electrically powered van that you might have left off your wish list if you're seeking a compact, battery-powered LCV. And that could be a mistake because there's very little that any of its competitors can offer that this little Nissan can't match. And it'll do that with the added peace of mind of a 5-year warranty, which is longer than virtually all of its rivals. The brand does need to address issues with short wheelbase body style payload and base spec charging speed though. Overall though, it's certainly a big step forward from the old ENV200, and if your business ran one of those, once you've got used to the fact that the bigger battery here in this Townstar takes longer to charge, we think you'll like just about everything else about it. Apart perhaps from the price, which is a bit of a step up, but then that's the case with most rivals too. A Townstar offers a thoughtful customer's alternative to any of them.